Hey, it's Sarah. Real talk? How long has Start a Podcast been on your list? If you've been running your business for at least a few years and you keep thinking about podcasting but never actually do it, I've got something for you. I'm hosting for the very first time Podcast Launch Prep Week, December 8th through 12th. 5 days where we'll map out your strategy, plan 6 months of your content, and lock in your actual podcast launch date. No more someday. It's $99 fully credited toward your launch package. And we're capping it at just 50 people so everyone gets real support in a group environment. Right now, you can join the interest list at podfoxmedia.com and you'll get early access when cart opens. Turn your later into a launch date. See you there. Welcome to Big Brave Business. This is the podcast where we answer big questions reshaping entrepreneurship. I'm Sarah K. Heeter, and this is Season 3. Each week, I'm bringing on my friends, mentors, and some of the best thought leaders I know. We dive into bold, values-driven conversations about leadership, equity, ethics, and building businesses that actually make a difference. Ready to do business better? Let's dive in. Welcome back to Big Brave Business. This is going to be fun today. I already know because we've been having the best time before we even hit record. But we're going to be talking about rule breaking. We're troublemakers today. We're breaking the rules. But before I open it up with the big question, let's just give a little lay of the land of who is here, what voices you're hearing in the conversation. So I'll kick it off. My name is Sarah. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I am obviously the host of this podcast, and I run a company called Podfox, which is podcast production and strategic consultation.
So Regina Curtis, I am a soul rhythm amplifier. I'm the founder of Itmatry and co-founder of the Mingle Learning Collaborative. And I help you understand the big picture so that you can leverage it and create a business that feels like home and works like magic. And I really love working with motivated visionaries to do that work.
I'm Allie. I run the Seated Perspectives brand, which started and still is a disability advocacy space and community building space, and now has shifted into a coaching business where I work with other disabled women to help them show up confidently on social media and really clear all of the internalized ableism and imposter syndrome that really clouds a lot of their action taking.
Yes, and I'm Monica Henderson. I am a genius activator. And what that means is I help people do self-automation and use their organic intelligence. Because if you don't use it, you lose it, people. Hate to say it. I am the co-creator with Regina of the Mingle Learning Collaborative. And basically what we do there is we help people who don't want to suck in a particular area of their lives, not suck in that area. That's pretty much it. And we do it all together. So we're a community of people who don't want to suck anymore. We just want to be awesome. We want to live our lives the best. And so I get to spend my day every day kind of having those conversations. So I'm excited about this one.
This is so funny because when you were first leading that in, I just thought you were going to say, I'm a genius. And I was like, you know what? Really happy for you that you would introduce yourself that way. That's awesome. And then you were like, activator. I was like, oh, okay. All right. So today's big question is, when should entrepreneurs break the rules in business, and how do they know which ones are worth breaking?
Break the ones that are not working for you, right? I think this is what my whole perspective on business is: do it all inside out, upside down, and backwards. Do it from the inside out, right?
Mhm.
Start with what it is that you are really wanting. And so if there are rules that are constricting you to try to do something in a way that is not actually supporting you, fulfilling you, joyful for you, or like aligned with what your needs, desires, and just kind of who you are, break those rules, right? And there's a lot of them that can be broken. I can be more specific about it, but a lot of that comes from like, market your business this way. Start with a business plan. I'm like, don't start with a business plan. Start with your plan. Understand who it is that you are and what it is that you want and what you have to give. And that's your plan. And the rest of those pieces will fill in after that.
Yeah. I am not a rule breaker. I am a loophole finder. And so I love learning the rules of what things are supposed to go do. Like, this is how it's supposed to be. This is the rule. I often say I am usually the exception to the rule because I found the loophole, right? And
Mm.
I really feel like every entrepreneur, anybody who stepped out to do business on their own, you've already broken the rule, right? This definition of success that we've all been sold and we've been told this is what success looks like. You have already broken that just by stepping out and doing your own business. So you might as well figure out what other rules are bullshit that you want to just throw to the side and not deal with because one, if you're going to go into business for yourself, working with people who suck does not sound like a good idea. Why would you like want to do that? Doing things that don't make you excited or happy, doing it alone, all of the things where they were like, you should be doing this, right? The should storm, right? And they're shitting all over themselves. That stuff, throw that all out because you decided to step out on your own because what was there before sucked. So why would you then go recreate the same exact shitty situation for yourself day in and day out? We spend at least 8 hours a day working. You might as well be having a good time. So I'm like, find the rules, question all of them. My mom taught me that really early on to her detriment. She did not like what the results of that was, but find the rules, question everything, and then decide, like Regina said, does it suit your soul? Does it fit with your own personal rhythms? And if it doesn't, then fuck it, drop it.
Yeah, I mean, as a disabled woman and like working with lots of other disabled women, to me, it's like rewrite the rules. Like the rules aren't there to like weren't built for us. Like realistically, they weren't built for us. They were built for non-disabled white men who thrive on hustle culture, who thrive on go, 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 who had the space and financial support to do that and a wife at
Mm,
home to let
preach,
them do
sister.
that. So like, yeah, the rules weren't written for us. They're not our rules. So like, I mean, for me personally, it's taken a lot of unlearning the rules that I thought were like the path to success. And Monica, you said don't do it alone. And that's been like the most recent one for me, where I thought because I had spent my whole time working at companies, like proving that I was good enough to be there and to do things and that I
Mm-hmm.
could do things on my own and that I could do things independently. I carried all of that into like my business building. And not surprising anyone, the last 6 months I've spent like like it just completely depleted because I was trying to do it all on my own. And then like, okay, finally I invested in a course to help me like build the program I want to build. Oh, fancy that, another brain. That's like completely helped me get there much faster. And then in doing that, like 3 weeks ago, yesterday, I was able to create something in like a matter of 3 hours. And I was like, oh, okay, my creative energy is back because I was like able to open the doors to something different. So yeah, for disabled women, disabled entrepreneurs, like rewrite the rules big time and yeah, be very sort of clear on what works with your body, what works with your energy levels, what like gets you to that next step in a way that's still sustainable to you. Cause otherwise, like, why are you doing something if it's not going to work
Yeah.
for you?
This is so interesting because I think, like, yes, I don't even remember. I think, Monica, you were the first one who said it, that just starting a business is already breaking rules. And I feel that. But I want to also say, I think that once you do that, there is a certain part of us that all wants to be like, hell yeah, I'm a rule breaker. But also, can I go on record and say, in case this resonates with anybody, particularly you listening, I am a rule follower. I'm a good girl. I've always been a good girl. I'm like I am a Girl Scout. And in fact, I was like raised as a girl, like in Girl Scouts. And then also my first job out of college, I worked for Verizon. And then my second job, I went to Girl Scouts. And when I was leaving Verizon and they were like, oh, did you get a new job? Where are you going? And when I said Girl Scouts, they were like, oh yeah, that tracks. I am a rule follower to the point where my very first job ever, I was 14. I worked at McDonald's. That sounds crazy if you live in a place where 14-year-olds can't work, but in Pennsylvania, you can get work permits at 14. Anyways, so I was working at McDonald's, and there's this rule that when you're working in the drive-through, you can only put stuff out the window. You can't accept anything except money. Like nothing can come back in. So once you've handed them food, if it's wrong, they keep it. You can't accept it back. And so 14-year-old Sarah was like, and they stressed too, you get secret shoppers. So if you've ever worked in like a restaurant or whatever, like a secret shopper, you don't know who they're going to be. They could be someone, they could be somebody from corporate. They could be just a random person in street clothes. Like you have no idea. So anyways, my manager had left for the day, and then she ran through the drive-through right after she left. And I was like, what the heck? Like you just left. Didn't you just walk out of here? And she said, yeah, I meant to get a drink on my way out. I thought I'd just swing through here. Can you just ring that up for me? And she was like, oh, but then I have to make room in my cup holder. Can you throw this out? And she held up this trash. And little 14-year-old Sarah just stared at her and was like, I cannot. Like, it's against the rule. But this is my manager asking me to do it. What do I do? Like, and the poor little Sarah, the whatever expression was on my face, my manager just took pity on me and was like, okay, it's good. And she really tried to say, Sarah, this is not, it's not a test. Like, and I was like, what if it is? Like, and also I just am not allowed, like it's a rule. So I want to go on record and say, I am not a rule breaker. I was not raised to question everything. I was not raised to break the rules or to be rebellious or to be challenging. I was raised to be a Girl Scout. And that has been an interesting thing for me in business. With just starting my business was a little bit of like, oh shit, I'm bucking something. Like I'm walking away from something. I had this like kind of vision my whole life that I was going to be in the C-suite, which hey, I am, but I was going to be in the C-suite, and that was going to look like business professional, like wearing suits, wearing heels under the fluorescent fucking lights in a corner office in an office building. Like that's what it was going to look like. And just leaving like a job, a job job, to start my own business was like, whoa, it's kind of empowering to like, you can just make this up. Like, nobody can tell me what to do except like the government. Like what?
It is. I love that you said that, and I love that you brought it in. And I want to say, I also was a Girl Scout, and I ran Girl Scouts, right? And to give you a little bit of, for anyone who understands astrology, and I'll interpret what this means in a moment, but like I am an Aries rising, meaning like I'm a pioneer, I'm out there, I'm trying new things, right? But I'm also a Capricorn sun. And so I am like, I have a need to be like seen as responsible and respectable and all of the things. And I have a shit ton of stuff in Virgo, which means that I'm like all about where things are supposed to be and how they're supposed to go, right? So I spent a long time in my life following the rules as they were given to me. And there was a benefit to that in a lot of ways. And it was because I learned by really allowing myself to be in those roles and understand what those roles were, it helped me understand where they actually did work for me and where they didn't, right? And so now I've really stepped into that, like, yeah, I'm gonna make my own path, and I've really like brought that part of me forward. But the thing that I would like to really, and I know I was the one that started out with like break all the damn rules, right? But also there's a time for that, and there's a time, like if you're doing it just to be rebellious of something, then really look at like what is it that you're trying to, why are you in that space, right? If it's about these rules actually don't serve me, and I recognize that, then yeah, break all the damn rules, right? Like make up your own rules, rewrite the rules, whatever they are. But the thing that I really want us to reflect on, and I ask this to all of you, right? Like, is what is the difference between a rule and a principle, right? Because principles, in my definition, and I'll start by saying like this is my understanding, like a rule is something that's made up for a certain circumstance, but a principle stands no matter what. And so I'm curious if it's for you, right? Is it rules you're breaking and aligning with principles, or are you really just going out there to like figure out what is going on?
Honestly, so we're a room full of good girls gone bad, right? And I found out at 40 that I was neurodivergent, right? So it took that long for me to find out that I was on the spectrum. And I am a very obedient person, right? But the way that I need things to be done is not the way that anyone expects it to get done. So I personally am a principled person, and I had to look for the efficiency in the rules so that I could be a good girl, because I don't want to have people thinking that I'm a bad person. I am very, like, I have a very strong moral compass, right? However, at the same time, there are certain things, and I'm sure Allie can relate. There are certain things that are like rules of how things are supposed to be done that I just can't do. I'm not made that way. I can't break myself to do that. So I would find very interesting ways to still follow the rule, but in my own way, which is why I said I'm a loophole finder, right? I had to think about, like, what is the principle behind the rule, right? Because they're all rules started because someone fucked up. It's really what it is. A rule exists because somebody was an idiot and didn't know how to do this thing, right? And they had to go, okay.
Mhm.
We're going to create a rule so people don't do this anymore, right? And that's really what rules are. And it's based on a principle. And the principle is traditionally respect, right? Like creating a space of respect for everybody who's involved in this particular thing, right? So if we really look at it, which is a great question, Regina, rules are based on principles, but it's the coloring of this, whoever had to put a system in place to make everybody in that system work together, right? With that said, people like me can't always follow the rules the way that the rules are written, but I can find out what the rule is and find my own way to bring forward that principle. It's how I feel about stops, a four-way stop, right? The four-way stop is designed because there are four people who are going to come to this four-way stop, right? And we have to know who gets to go first. We all get there at reasonably the same time. Now, if I'm the only person at a four-way stop, I do believe I'm allowed to roll through that stop because there's nobody else at that stop, the corners, that I'm yielding to as a part of this particular rule, right? The principle behind it is we need to know who gets to go first, right? So am I really breaking the rule, or am I following the principle?
Mm.
It's kind of a, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound kind of a question? Because I think, like, what's funny is my gut says in response to that is like a kind of philosophical question, is that the only way you would get in trouble for breaking that rule is if someone was there to see you break it, in which case you wouldn't be there alone, which means, yes, you would come to a full stop. So the only circumstances where there's a consequence to that action do not apply. So then I think, like, I guess I wouldn't care. And also, I can tell you for absolute certain, I would fully stop. Like, it can be the middle of the night and there is literally not a soul to be seen, and I will wait at that red light until it turns green. Like, it's
Yeah.
just me. I go the speed limit if there's nobody around to see. Like, I just do. I don't know. But it is interesting. I think there's also for me a question of, and asking Regina, by the way, the kind of how do you define rule is also interesting, because it's easy to go to, like, I mean, the law, like, ultimately, is it breaking the law or not? And then, but like with business, rules aren't law necessarily, right? Most of the time it's just like what we understand to be a rule, right? Or what everybody does. And so I think really the kind of heart of this question, my intention personally was, like, what are the norms or what people tell you you're supposed to do? Or going back to what you said, I think, Monica, you said, like, the shoulds. You should do this, you're supposed to do this, that kind of thing. That's more how I'm, like, thinking of rules for the sake of this conversation. But all of that to say, I think for me, breaking a rule, there's this big question of like, what's the benefit of breaking it? So if I don't
Mhm.
see a benefit to breaking it, or if the benefit isn't that serious, then it's not a big deal to just follow it. But questioning, and you said this too, it's about questioning everything, questioning like, why is this a rule? What was the
Mhm.
point behind this rule? Who came up with this rule? Who does this rule serve? Right? Allie, you were touching on
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. Like, and then if I were to do things differently, what could it look like? And
Mhm.
how would that affect everyone involved, me included?
Yeah.
Like, and that there's like an assessment, but there are so many assumptions in how we're supposed to do things that some things I don't even like think to question until I have conversations like this. So I do want to talk about like what are some specific things, because I know for me some like easy things. I don't work normal office hours. Like
Nope.
I don't want to. I don't want to get up. First of all, I don't want to get up to an alarm. But even if I have to get up to an alarm, I don't want to get up to an alarm at 6 a.m. I don't want to. Those days are done for me. Like we're done unless I need to catch a flight, right? So my work schedule is I get to pick my hours. That's like an easy one. Another one that kind of comes up really immediately for me, and probably when I developed kind of the thought questions for this, were around sales calls. I know not everybody does them and everybody's looks different. I really honestly developed mine based on number one, I was uncomfortable with sales when I started my business. I love it now. It's my favorite thing that we do, but I was uncomfortable with it. So I wanted it to add value. So rather than a sales call, we do a free strategy session. We add the sales part to the end of like, hey, if you got value from this and we both agree this is a good fit to work together, here's what that could look like. Is that something you want to do? But even if you don't, I hope that you took value from the strategy session. That's like an easy thing for me, character wise, principle wise. And then the second piece of it was I made it 90 minutes because I tried really hard. 30 was never going to happen to do a strategy session and a sales call. Then I tried really hard to do it in 60 minutes, but as I'm a talker, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it in 60. We were going over all the time. By making it 90, we never go over. Sometimes we go under. That's fine. You get 15 minutes back, but we never go over. And I shouldn't say never. There are times I get on with like a friend and we don't have anything afterwards, or we become friends and so we just like chat. But it's easy for me to keep it within 90 minutes. Now, when I started that, people told me no one will sign up for a 90-minute sales call. No one. You can't do that. And let me promise you, I have multiple sales calls every single month since I started my business. It's not a problem. If it's not for you, guess we're not going to work together. I don't know. Eventually, I'll get to a point where there's another method of coming in through a different avenue, I guess. But for now, like there's enough people who absolutely do want to do a 90-minute call that it's not a problem. So those are the two that come up for me.
My question would be, why do you care, right? Like, and not like really, really truly, right? Like, if those people don't value coming into that experience and aren't willing to be in that process with you, and if that's what your process is, then do you want them as clients, right? Because I guarantee you they're going to be a pain in your ass the entire time. They're
Entire time.
gonna they're gonna be like, I want you to do it this way. I need like I and I'm not saying like don't put their needs as important, right? But if it's not a match, like sales calls are not just about you selling you, it's about you determining whether this is going to be a good client for you too. And I think that is in itself breaking a rule, right? Because there's some rules are written and some rules are unwritten, right? And I love that you said that you go like immediately your brain goes right to the law, right? There are also universal laws and principles, and they're like the energetics of things, but like there are unwritten rules that are really just social agreements that we've made or standard practices that have been built into business that we hold ourselves accountable to, even though they actually, like Ali said earlier, were not made for us. They were not structured for us. They're not actually the space in which we will thrive. So, one of those being that sales are all about like manipulating somebody into coming to work with you, right? Using psychology to help them see the benefit in something, but that whole thought process of that is like it's really icky, right? It's like actually, it's not really about that. It's just as much about whether you want to work with them as it is, do they want to work with you and do they see value in your product?
Yeah. The the sales call is it's a good rule. It's a good conversation to have about rules, right? Because I have on the opposite side of you, I have a 20-minute sales call and no one's allowed to pitch during that time. Right. So I like when they start in there, like, okay, you meet them on LinkedIn and they get in and they're ready to give you the pitch. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm not interested. I'm sure you're really good at what you do. I know you're the best, yada, yada, yada. But who are you as a person? I want to get to know you. And if they're not willing to drop the professional persona to have a conversation with me, human to human, I'm not interested in doing business with you as a customer or doing business with you as a potential person who's willing to work with me. The reason that I do that is because one, if I wanted to hear this, I would have read the shit you sent me in the DM when you first tried to make this in the first place, and I didn't. Right? I only want, as my rule in my business is, I only work with people I like. Period. That's rule in my business. And because again, I could get paid some crappy money to work with people I don't like, but I've chosen not to. My life's too short. I don't have time for that shit. I just rather work with people I like. Right. And so because of that, my rule is I only work with people I like. And if you can't come to the call as a human being, talking to another human being, it doesn't matter because ultimately what it comes down to is it doesn't matter what you're selling. I'm buying the person. It doesn't matter what I'm selling. They're buying me as a person. They need to know that on the other side of this Zoom, this phone call, this email is an actual person because there's not enough of that these days. There's just not enough. Right. So when everybody in coaching, right, the rule was, oh, no, 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 you're wasting your time doing live coaching. You need to create a video course. That's how you make all the money. I ran in the other direction. And I went, I don't do video courses. I don't have a single video course, but I offer 48 topics. Both of us, Regina and I, offer 48 topics in life, business, branding, networking, wealth, spirituality, alignment, and something's missing.
Prosperity.
Prosperity. There we go. 48 live experiences where you're talking to a human being about the thing. That turned out to be the secret to our success. Because while everybody was buying courses and letting them sit in their inbox, right? Or buying courses and not showing up to them, or buying courses, taking the first 3 modules and then dropping out, we have people show up every day consistently asking for help, getting the help that they need, moving their business forward quickly because they needed real help in real time. And that's what it was. So for me, the rule became people first, business second. That was the rule. And that was one that I think industry standards is a broken rule, right? Because that's not what it's about. Automate everything. Yes, automate the things that you don't need to do on a regular basis, but don't automate the human touch.
Mhm.
So when you get an email from me, a message from me, it's me. It's not a bot. It's not some random AI who's done this. It is me, right? When you get a email from me, which you don't get very often because I hate email, so I don't do that to other people. But if you get an email from me, it's actually me emailing you. It just became the rule of mine that's like, if it's me, it's going to be me, right? Now, do I have templates? Absolutely, that I've written myself that are in my voice, in my language, that I will copy and paste and adjust to send to you. Absolutely, but it's not sent by someone else. So when someone replies back, because that very second I was sending a message and they reply back, they get an actual response back from me. And sometimes they're like, is this a bot? And I'm like, nope, it's me. I sent it to you. Actually me. And sometimes I'll even send a picture of like, real person, right? Because I think the rule now, especially as technology is becoming more stronger, like a stronger force in our world, the human touch is going away. And my rule is people first.
I love all of that, Monica. I think that's been such a big thing for me in terms of finding how to show up authentically in like my business and how I relate to people. And also just remembering who it is that I serve. So the two rules that sort of are broken rules that came to mind for me were, one, in terms of how I run my business, how I approach every day, my body makes the decision first. So right now it's like, okay, am I in pain? Is it enough pain? I think I spoke about this in the last episode I was on, but like I have recently spent 3 months in like chronic pain with my shoulder, and I am someone who will always power through because that's what I've been trained to do. And it was getting entirely in the way of my thinking. And now, like, I've done my physio, I'm doing better, but it's just like, I, I, I needed to take days where I wasn't working because I wasn't doing anything productive by being there in pain and having my brain clouded. So body first, like how I'm feeling, energy levels, and that then dictates like which tasks I'm taking on each day, because I want to be aligned with like what I'm demanding my brain to do on a given day. And sometimes that means moving calls. Yesterday I woke up, I felt nauseous and I had a coaching call at 8 a.m. and I was like, hey, sorry, can't. Like, can we move it to Thursday? And what's beautiful about working with other disabled women is that they all get it. Like, I have had no issue in sort of moving things or rescheduling things because these women get it. And that has been such a beautiful gift to myself, because now I'm able to give myself permission a lot more to make those choices. And the second rule is that I think a lot of people have issue with, and I'm just like, why? Is that for my coaching calls, people buy 3 calls with me or 4 calls with me, and it's entirely up to their discretion on when they use those calls.
Mm-hmm.
There's no limit. They can use them whenever they want. It could be a year from now, because I know life happens and our bodies happen. And like, who would I be to practice, like preach what I do and then show up and say, actually, you need to use all of these within a month? When like, no, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So that's been really interesting to sort of see people be like, oh, really? Like, I have this rule and and people have to do it within this time. And I'm like, I don't think that dampens the effectiveness of like the conversations I'm having, especially when a lot of it, even though it is sort of about branding and showing up on social media and content, like so much of it is mindset. And so much of it is them wanting to have another person they can talk to about the things that they're struggling with. So no, I'm not like going to put a limit to when they can access me in that sense.
You know what's so interesting about that too is there have been things like that have come up in my business where I have heard from other kind of like colleagues or mentors or coaches who will say like, you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that, or that's not going to work, or whatever. And then when I make a decision that goes against that, and I kind of wonder like, how is this going to land? How well received it is? Like the example that you gave, Ali, about rescheduling a call, like when I have needed, this year, it happened health-wise. Last year, it happened because of a household issue, like an emergency repair we needed to do, where like anytime I've needed to clear my calendar, when I just explain to people what, like even just a little bit, this is what the reason, like this is what's going on, something's going on, nobody minds. When I let people know, like, my clients have my cell phone number. It's actually in my email signature. So literally if you email me, you have my cell phone, but I don't have a boundary around giving out my number. I kind of feel like if you Google me, you can get it. So what's the point in trying to keep that, whatever. But also for my clients, like the fastest way to get a hold of me is text. Email, you're looking at potentially 1 business day to respond. And sometimes I respond immediately, but sometimes it's going to take me time. Today, I'm recording back-to-back podcasts all day. So I'm not in my email inbox, right? And it just is going to take, and also I don't work normal business hours and I'm on the West Coast. If you live in a different country or if you're on the East Coast and you send me something at 7 a.m., I'm not going to see it for 8 hours, right? Like that's just true. At best, I'm not going to see it. Even if I see it in 8 hours, I don't necessarily have the bandwidth to respond in 8 hours. So it's going to take time. So the fastest way to get a hold of me is text message. And I'm totally fine with my clients texting me. What I always tell them is, you can text me any time of day, any day of the week. It doesn't matter. If I'm unavailable, I won't answer. Like it's just true. So go ahead and text me. It's not going to bother me. Just have the expectation I will respond when I'm available. And it's never been a problem. Similarly, if I go on vacation, but I let people know, like, I'll have limited, or even a work trip, I'll have limited access to email and text message. I'm not really working, but if something comes up and you email me or text me, like, just know it might take me a little bit longer to respond. They'll say, all right, I don't need to text you. I'll wait until you're back. Like, it's fine, right? Like, they want to respect it. And I think that's been kind of a weird surprise to me. I think coming from corporate, like a more corporate job, to running my own business is like, actually, it kind of seems like most people want to operate this way. It's just that none of us are in a system that like sets that expectation. So when we just have clear expectations among ourselves, we're all like, oh, this is so much better. I like this.
Yeah. Oh, well, can I just reframe something for everybody listening? There are no such thing as entrepreneurial emergencies. Like, no one will die if you do not answer your text message, your email, the DM. No one will die. Like, unless you are a doctor or a nurse or a first responder, your quickness to answering the call is not going to kill someone if they need to take some time. But this policy of being real people, right? I think people respect real people. I think the fact that your life is lifing is relatable because life be lifing sometimes, right? Like, you're like trying to do your best, trying to be on your P's and Q's, trying to be that like bad boss bitch in your business. And then life just happens and you have to deal. And honestly, if there's a customer who doesn't respect that your life is lifing and you need some time, good freaking riddance, right? Like, they do not deserve your time, your energy, your talent. Yes, they may be paying you, but that energy exchange is not worth it. It's not worth it at all. It's not worth it for the extra stress because we all need grace, especially these days with all the things going on in the world. We all need the grace. And so, what I love about what Regina and I have created in the Mingle community is even if we show up when we're not supposed to, our members will send us back to bed.
We send them out all the time. They send us out too. They're like, they quote us back to ourselves, right? One of
Yeah.
my main things is like, are you flowing? Are you forcing or are you flowing? And they'll be like, wait, seems like you might be forcing here. Are you forcing? Do you need to step outside?
Yes. But they cover for us, right? Like they'll say, we have the questions. You don't need to be here. If anybody else comes in, I got you. Like, it is literally a community in that way because the culture that we've created in our businesses and then collectively in this community is we are real people offering real help in real time. And sometimes that looks like I came on camera with maybe still a headscarf on my head, or
In the
I might
midst of
have a
doing your
kid
braids.
come into the Zoom and ask me for something, or a cat's butt might be in the front of my
Regina's
screen
screen.
because my cat decided it wanted to show off today. Or, oh my God, I got to go run and do this thing. Or I have a migraine and I can't deal today. Like, whatever it is, like, the reality is if all business ran that way, like, honestly, if all business ran where people were allowed to show up in their genius, right? And when they weren't on, we were like allowed to not have to deal with their bad attitude and their bad feelings and their bad thing, because just like good energy has a ripple effect, so does bad energy, right? And I think if we could actually honor the human spirit in all business, imagine how less, like, I always think we would have no road rage if people were allowed to go to work because they felt good, right? And not because they had to do this thing that they're resentful about, right? Like, that ripple effect could actually change the world just by creating a different work environment for people to work in. And so I think I'm glad you guys have this policy of, like, especially you, Allie, that you have this policy of like, hey, it's here, use it when you need it, right?
Mhm.
As opposed to this like really rigid, forced thing. And really, that's just about sales cycle. If we're honest, if we're really looking at why that rule is a rule, is because this person needs to keep their sales consistent. And so it's just about sales cycle. It had nothing to do with the needs of the person on the other end, which is, again, goes back to my thing of saying, like, hey, why is the rule a rule in the first place? Let's go back down to the original principle behind it. And so, with you honoring the people that you're serving and with you honoring your own body and your own needs, you are then taking back that stupid narrative that like it has to be this way. And you're saying, no, it doesn't have to be this way, because honestly, I think those people would pay you anyway, right? They would keep coming back to you because you have that policy, not because you forced them to use the credit.
Well, I think that it's a really beautiful embodiment of the thing that you are giving, right? So as an entrepreneur, your business is an expression of you, right? It's not your baby, it is a part of you. It is a creation that you have created, and at times it feels very much like this is my baby, but it is an expression of you, and your clients are a reflection of you. And so when you show up and you show them that reflection, right? Through being real about what it is that, yeah, I learned these things. I'm this far ahead of where you are in the process. And I'm also still a version of you, right? Like that we share some of the same qualities. And whether that is your values, right? Sarah, I know you talk a lot about like values alignment with your clients and with the people who come on your show and the listeners, right? That you sharing like, this is my cell phone, this is how to best to get in touch with me, send it when you send it, I will respond when I respond. That is showing like, these are my values and we are aligned because I respect you to I have a very similar policy, right? I call
Same
it
one, yeah.
exquisite boundaries. I set my own exquisite boundaries. I ask you to send the message when you need to send it, because it's going to be the clearest when you have that thought in that moment, right? If you wait, because I've said I only respond to messages at this hour to this hour on these days at this time, and you hold yourself to try to remember it until then you're probably either going to forget it, or it's going to get distorted, or it's not going to come through in the way it needs to, right? And trust that I have boundaries around my communication devices. I learned that the hard way through my corporate job. And I actually did have emergency situations at that time, right? I planned educational travel programs, and there were people's children in my care, in my responsibility, that were on planes flying from country to country. There were sometimes actual emergencies that I did need to respond to. And so I did have to have my phone on all the time. I did have to respond to things at 2 a.m. I did have to deal with stuff, but now I don't. And sometimes that is still when like I actually have the space or the mental capacity or the inspiration to listen to your message and respond to it. So I ask you to also set exquisite boundaries around your communication devices so that I'm not then interrupting your lifestyle.
Boundaries are such an interesting conversation, and I kind of like I a little bit hesitate to open this can of worms because of the timing of this and the conversation. But I do kind of want to say one thing that's been interesting. Boundaries is an interesting thing that comes up with entrepreneurship, and I'm going to put this on the list for another like later in when we come back after summer to record more of season 3 around boundaries specifically, because I think that a lot of what we talk about is like, okay, as small businesses, as small business owners, we get to decide what we are and aren't willing to do. We get to decide when we go above and beyond. We get to decide where, and sometimes as entrepreneurs, we overwork and we give too much of ourselves. And this has kind of come up in several different conversations in different contexts. And I think that then we always can come to the point of, and then eventually there's burnout, right? So you have to figure out how to put boundaries into place. And one thing that has been interesting, and I'm curious what you all think about it briefly, and then we have to wrap up just because of timing, is this concept that a boundary is something you set for yourself. It's not something that you set for other people. This is an interesting thing that I've kind of seen put out there as far as like people will say, I set a boundary and you're not respecting it. And it's like, no, you can't set boundaries for other people. You set boundaries for yourself. And then you have to make decisions about what that means for how people fit, different relationships fit into your life. And this is an interesting thing to kind of that has come up for me several times in business where like with dating, how they say if they want to, they will. Yeah, have you heard people say that if he wants to, he will, if they want to, they will. I kind of think that about business sometimes, but I'm the they. So it's if I want to, I will. When I have an opportunity to go above and beyond for a client, they want something rushed or they call me, which I like never take unscheduled calls. You can call me and leave a message. I'm not going to answer it, but like schedule. I have a calendar. But there was a time that just came up recently where a client called me and I happened to see it. My phone was on silent, but I happened to see it. And the call I was supposed to be on had just gotten pushed an hour. So I had an hour and a half and I was like, I was planning to be on a call. I mean, I could take this call right now, but if I do, what precedent is that setting? What do I want to do? I did end up, by the way, taking the call and it was 2 seconds long. It was not even a big deal. Like it's so easy, but like could have been a text message. But it's interesting because that kind of comes up to me sometimes where I'm like, ooh, this person asked for a rush. I could do it, but what boundary do I want to set? And how do I balance like having a boundary and choosing to break my own boundary because I can and it's okay in that situation. So anyways, just wondering like briefly, what comes up for you when I say that?
I think it has to do with the difference between boundaries and standards, right? And also like what is your definition of a boundary? So a standard, right? My standard delivery time is going to be between 1 and 3 days, right? The standard that I've set is that I don't answer calls unless you've scheduled an appointment. And so you're setting a standard, but just with any boundary, like if you think of a boundary like a fence, there's generally a doorway, right? And you can choose to open that door and let somebody through that boundary, but it is a choice, right? Otherwise, it sets a clear message to say, this is the line. This is acceptable always. This is acceptable never. And here's the pathway that you can move through. And I, as the owner of that boundary, get to decide, am I going to open the door or not? And so it's a matter of setting a standard of respect. And as long as you have a standard of respect of, I'm going to come and knock at that door and respect that you are going to only open it if it is correct for you to open it. Otherwise, I know the standard, right? And I will wait until it's time for me to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to some of the themes that have come up in this conversation too, around just like interacting with humans and how you want to show up and then protecting your peace in that process too. I think we talk about boundaries so much in today's society and it feels like such a rigid thing because that's what the word is. But I think it can be fluid. Like, I think we can choose how we want to show up or how we expect to communicate with people on a given day. I mean, so much of it is related to like how we're feeling and what our energy levels are and what we're willing or not to put up with on a given day too. So I don't know. I think what comes up for me is like taking it with grace for ourselves and for the people that we're interacting with. And that respect becomes a huge part of that.
Yeah, I grew up with so my neurodivergency showed up as a shy kid, right? And I could talk, but I was not strongly communicative. So I would not actually speak to you unless I was first spoken to. That's just kind of how I was. Now, that particular makeup as a human made it so that there were people who felt that they could just do anything, say anything around me because I wasn't actually saying anything about boundaries. And having the mother that I had who was she's a big personality, like big energy, big all of the things. When I did finally get to the point where I found my own voice, I had to get really, really comfortable with setting boundaries. And what I learned about boundaries through that process really kind of like Regina kind of teed me up for this was that my house has a yard and it is my job to communicate at the fence that beware of dog. There is a dog on the premises and so you need to beware of dog. It's the warning sign to let you know that there are spaces in here that are not going to be just freely frolicking in all that other way, right? It is my choice if I want to open the fence and put my dog away and let you in to come to the door. But it's my job to protect my yard and to have enough signage on said yard about how to behave in my space. And because of the way that I was interacting with my emotions, I had to get really good at being like, I'm sorry, but like this is too far, right? Like this is too much. This is, if you don't stop here, you're going to come into space where I'm going to have to unleash the dogs, right? Like I had to learn that through that process. And then it became a teaching part for me where it was like, we all have to do that. We all have to set, like, it's not my fault if your signs aren't there. You don't tell me that this is a boundary that I'm overstepping. There's nothing I can, like, then I'm not culpable in that, right? And that is the law, right? We were talking about the law earlier today. The law is, right, if you have a dog and your dog bites someone, if you had no signage, you're at fault, right? But if you had signage, then that person's responsible for that infraction. And I think that's the same way when it comes to communication, right? Our job is to have clear signage of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, and then to protect that signage and to back that signage up, or to, if we're going to allow someone into our space, to actually make it safe for them to be there so that they can be there, right? And so that's kind of like how I feel about boundaries. I think they're important because I've lived a life where there were no boundaries because I didn't say anything. But then I also do believe that a lot of times people put like, well, like my boundaries are your problem. And that's not true, right? My boundaries are they're my responsibility to manage the perimeter of what I feel is my space. However, do know that I will unleash the dogs if you overstep my boundary. Well, because I do give so many warnings about like, hey, this is unacceptable. Hey, this is unacceptable, kind of a thing.
So interesting. I think this gives me so much to think about. And I already want to like record a whole other episode with you all about this. But I think it's related because I think it's what rules are we breaking? And then what rules are we making? And it kind of all goes together. And what do we do when we make a rule and someone breaks it, right? Like all of these things are, and can we set rules for other people? Do we even want to set rules for other people? These are like all rule breaking related questions. So this has been super interesting. Again, I feel like I have had this happen several times on this podcast where the conversation doesn't necessarily go where I expect it to go. And I love that. I love the like authenticity and the organic nature of these conversations. It's just so fun. I want to remind you that if you want to connect with anybody that you've been listening to, first of all, there are other episodes you can go listen to because Ali and Regina have been on several times. Monica will definitely be back. So definitely that. And then also our information and our links and everything are in the description and the show notes. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you so much. And just so happy to have these conversations. And yeah, thanks for spending the time with me and having a real like deep conversation about business. I love it. And to you listening, same applies to you. Thank you for being here with us and for taking this kind of journey into rule breaking with us. I like Good Girls Gone Bad. That's really fun. And yeah, we'll see you right here next week. Hey, it's Sarah. Real talk? How long has Start a Podcast been on your list? If you've been running your business for at least a few years and you keep thinking about podcasting, but never actually do it, I've got something for you. I'm hosting for the very first time Podcast Launch Prep Week, December 8th through 12th. 5 days where we'll map out your strategy, plan 6 months of your content, and lock in your actual podcast launch date. No more someday. It's $99 fully credited toward your launch package. And we're capping it at just 50 people so everyone gets real support in a group environment. Right now, you can join the interest list at podfoxmedia.com and you'll get early access when cart opens. Turn your later into a launch date. See you there.